4:05, 4:04. I'm a minute earlier than I thought. 4:04. So we'll call this meeting to order, and for the September meeting of the Garrett County Board of Education. First item of business is public comment, and Tom Bosley is signed up. Public comments normally limited to 3 minutes, and if you have any specific personnel issues, we'd ask that you refrain from those and share those privately with the board. So.
Okay, thanks. Can I stay seated, or does it matter?
Yes, right there is awesome.
More comfortable. I should begin by everybody knows who I am in terms of what my position is. I'm the head basketball coach at Southern High School, responsible for the entire program. So I do monitor first grade all the way through 12. Let you know that up front so you know what my situation is. I'm nervous, and I'm nervous not because I'm speaking, because I've spoken all my life. I'm nervous because as the coach, and with what took place in March, that probably everybody in the room is aware of, with our trainers' situation, with our playoff game at Frostburg State University, where we had 2 trainers under board contracts from our Board of Education, same type contract that I signed to be I'm no longer a teacher, I'm a retired teacher. I don't think it changes my status with regards to a trainer, meaning I think we have the same type contract. And with that said, our trainers did not get protection or help from our board with regards to, for example, Walter Lee and Frank Custer were subpoenaed to court to appear in Baltimore. And by being subpoenaed, Walt hired I'm not sure of Frank, and I'm not sure of my colleagues on the northern end, so I can't speak for them because I'm not sure the situation's the same. With that said, Walt used mega bucks out of his own pocket, a couple $1,000 plus, and got no support, I really think, from our Board of Ed. So I think, one, we should in some way, shape, or form compensate a guy that volunteered or worked on that, did that contract that was written, however you want to call it. We're trying to rewrite it and change it and make it work. Well, I think that's just a game. I think the game is we've got to make sure we're taking care of those that are taking care of us. So we had Walt and Frank with the understanding they're trainers, because that's what the contract said. We wrote it as a board. He didn't write it. He signed it. You accepted it, or we accepted it as a board. Therefore, I think he deserves protection. Same as if, let's say, I got 7 coaches that are now coming to me saying, Coach, I don't want to take his chance, man. I'm not sure I want to take his chance with all the things that are happening. You might be by yourself. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm in the same boat all of you in. Of my 8 coaches, 1 is still working in a teaching position. So we're all in that similar boat. In addition to that, we haven't done anything about it, and that was March. And to my knowledge, nothing has taken place. And then we, a day before we start our football season, which soccer's a head type sport where you can be heading the ball. And I hope I don't get out of line. I got an official here that can take care of that, make the call if necessary. But,
not in soccer.
But if we have a situation in football, we have no way of handling it because we don't have anybody in our football practices now that are trainers, because we don't have that position and we don't have a person to do that. So I'd hate to be the football coach, and I taught care and prevention of athletic injury when I taught it to college, so I have a little background, but I haven't been updated in that because there was no need to. I wish maybe our state would hire trainers at every school, make us hire trainers at every school, and our entire state might help everything and everybody. But I still think we need to be mindful of that. So I came to just voice my opinion that I think we're 2 weeks into football season in terms of games, so we're 5 weeks into football season, 4.5. We've got same thing with soccer. We have no trainer. So I think we're sitting and waiting on a lawsuit to happen. As a Board of Eds, I say we because I feel like I'm part of it, because that's what I did for a living. That's where my pride is, 40-some years ago on it. And probably 60-some teams, if I count, it's probably more than that. I don't know, 70, I don't know, a bunch, because I'm old. I think where the nervousness comes in for me then is, do I go forward, do I not? Do I risk everything I've saved, everything I own, for a lawsuit that may be greater than the one I think Walter Lee and Frank Custer will probably get? Maybe Frank, because he didn't show up. That's how that works when you're subpoenaed to a hearing rather than to whatever. And Walt, who spent mega bucks, he took his own son's savings for college for a while, who's up in Massachusetts in a college, while we didn't do anything to save him or help him. So I think moving forward, I don't want to be over the top. But I think moving forward, that'd be a shame if we let a guy that did that for 17, 18 years, helped me to college for the number of years I was at college, and then all of a sudden, we're not helping him. That's wrong. And all those guys that I'm trying to convince to help me, and all those people in football that tell me they're done at the end of the year, some of them saying, the only reason I stayed in was because I made a commitment. It's pretty cool. I made a commitment. I'm not going to stop in the middle of it. I'm not going to quit. But at the same time, is it real cool? Should you get a lawsuit because you take an ankle and somebody decides to sue you? And you can't trust those that you think are your best buddies and say, oh, I'm never suing you. We don't know how that works. We don't know how the world works. So we're in a more precarious situation now with lawsuits than we were when I started this business in '78. I told you I was old. So I think that's pretty much. Don't leave anything out that we talked about. I mean, he's not going to speak because he just came to see if I behaved. help him if he needed it. No, but I don't know if it's a question there. I just want to express my opinion. I just think we are in a bad position, and I think moving forward, it's getting worse every day. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, so we take the public comment and then probably talk about it at some point, but not necessarily.
That's fine.
Yeah. So.
I'm done then? You want me to leave?
Yeah.
Thank you.
You can. Well, it's executive.
A minute or two.
It's
I do appreciate your time.
executive.
I think I'm going to one side is what I'm saying. You want
That's
me to
right.
get down or say?
You're good. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you. Thanks. Thank you. See you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. See you.
All right. Our next item of business is moving to executive session. So I have to read this stuff first. And then I'll take that.
To show you how ready I am.
That's right. We have the authority to close the session under the general provisions of Article 3-305B. Tonight, we're doing that to discuss number one, the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, compensation, removal, resignation, performance evaluation of appointees, employees, or other officials over whom this body has jurisdiction, and any other personnel matters that affect one or more specific individuals. Number 7, to consult with counsel to obtain legal advice on a legal matter. Number 9, to conduct collective bargaining negotiations or consider matters that relate to negotiations. The discussion of the topics for each citation under number 1 is the professional leave request, certificated staffing recommendations, superintendent evaluation, and employee transfers. Under number 7 is legal advice regarding athletic trainers. Number 9 is plan provision for OPEB. And the reasons that these will be in closed session rather than open for the personnel topics is because they involve specific employees or confidential personnel matters. For the legal advice, it is because they are attorney-client privilege regarding this advice for counsel. And collective bargaining because that's the nature of the negotiations process. In addition to that, we'll consider a couple administrative function items which include the STARS program and the red dot books. All right. Is there a motion to approve the going into executive? Was Nate already made? Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, second by Tom. Any further discussion?
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor of moving to executive, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay. And it is approved. So you're able, if you would please stand, and then our student board member will also lead us in the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next item of business is the approval of the agenda, and we need to add item under 4B, the CIP. That's CIP under B. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Motion by Dr. Sorber, second by Mr. Woods. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The agenda is approved. Moving now to the approval of the public session minutes from August 14th, 2018. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Or a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Woods. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Rinker. Any further discussion or additions, changes? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The minutes are approved. Next item is the consent agenda. Under the consent agenda today, we have the certificated staffing recommendations. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Woods. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Dr. Sorber. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. It is approved. Closed session summaries.
Okay, thank you. The closed session, the Board of Education met in executive session on Tuesday, August 14th, 2018 at Central Office in the boardroom at 4:04 p.m. under Authority 3-305 of the General Provisions Article of the Annotated Code of Maryland to discuss the following items. Review of executive session minutes, personnel topics pursuant to 3-305B1, legal topic pursuant to 3-305B7, and administrative function topics which is specifically excluded from the Open Meetings Act by virtue of 3-103A1I of the General Provisions Article of the Annotated Code of Maryland. Monica Rinker made a motion to close the meeting, and this was seconded by Tom Woods. Thereafter, the board unanimously voted to close the session with a yea vote for Monica Rinker, Charlotte Seabold, Nathan Sorber, and Tom Woods. The closed session began at 4:04 p.m. The board recessed the executive session at 6:05 p.m. The executive session reconvened at 8:55 p.m. The topics discussed and actions taken include the following. Executive session minutes. The board reviewed the executive session minutes from the July 10th, 2018 meeting. The board requested minor revisions to the minutes. Charlotte Seabold made a motion to accept the amended minutes, and Nathan Sorber seconded the motion. The board unanimously voted to approve the amended minutes with a yea vote from Monica Rinker, Charlotte Seabold, Nathan Sorber, and Tom Woods. The board reviewed the executive session minutes from the July 25th, 2018 meeting. The board discussed in addition to the minutes. Tom Woods made a motion to accept the amended minutes, and Nathan Sorber seconded the motion. The board unanimously voted to approve the amended minutes with a yea vote for Monica Rinker, Charlotte Seabold, Nathan Sorber, and Tom Woods. Personnel topics pursuant to 3-305B1, professional leave requests. Mrs. Karen DeVore, Executive Director of Curriculum Instruction Administration, presented a professional leave request for the Prima Institute 2018. Tom Woods made a motion to approve the professional leave request, and Monica Rinker seconded the motion. The board unanimously approved the professional leave request with a yea vote for Monica Rinker, Charlotte Seabold, Nathan Sorber, and Tom Woods. Mr. Brandon Hoover, Board Attorney, requested board approval to attend the Maryland Association of Boards of Education Conference in October 2018. Tom Woods made a motion to approve the request, and Nathan Sorber seconded the motion. The board unanimously approved the professional development request from the Board Attorney with a yea vote from Monica Rinker, Charlotte Seabold, Nathan Sorber, and Tom Woods. Page 2. Certificated staffing recommendation. Dr. Jane Wilderson, Director of Human Resources, presented certificated staffing recommendations to the board for their approval. The board took this matter into consideration and voted on the recommendations during the public session under the consent agenda. Updates. Dr. Wilderson provided an update on staffing changes since the last board meeting. The board also discussed several personnel matters. The board took these matters into consideration but took no action. Tenure consideration for certificated employees. Dr. Jane Wilderson, Director of Human Resources, presented certificated staff for tenure consideration by the board. The board took this matter into consideration and voted on the approval of the tenured employees during the public session under the consent agenda. Superintendent evaluation. The board discussed the superintendent evaluation. Legal topic advice. Temporary contracts. Mr. Brandon Hoover, Board Attorney, made recommendations regarding clauses and language to include in temporary employee contracts. The board took this matter into consideration but took no action. Administrative function pursuant to 3-103A1I. The board considered and discussed various administrative function topics, including student educational planning guide, RISE strategic plan, school visits, athletic trainers, and correspondence with the county commissioners. No action were taken by the board on these matters. Recess and adjournment. The The board recessed the executive session at 6:05 p.m. The executive session reconvened at 8:55 p.m. Tom Woods made a motion to adjourn the executive session, and Nathan Sorber seconded the motion. The board unanimously approved adjourning the executive session at 12:05 a.m. with a yay vote from Charlotte Siebold, Monica Rinker, Nathan Sorber, and Tom Woods. Board members present included Mr. Matthew Paul, Board President, Dr. Nathan Sorber, Vice President, Board members Mrs. Monica Rinker, Mrs. Charlotte Siebold, and Mr. Tom Woods. Mrs. Barbara Baker, Secretary Treasurer, Superintendent of Schools, Mr. Brandon Hoover, Board Attorney, Dr. Jane Wilderson, Director of Human Resources, and Mr. Richard Wozlowski, Director of Transportation, were also present for part of the meeting. Ms. Karen Brewer, Executive Assistant to the Superintendent, was present for part of the meeting for the purpose of taking minutes.
Thank you. That must be your favorite part of the meeting.
It is.
Announcements.
Okay, that's me again. Tonight's announcements, we have upcoming. September 18th will be a staff development. Students dismissed 3 hours early. September 26th, progress reports for the first grading period. September 27th, the Board of Education meeting to review the audit. October 3rd through 5th, the MAVE annual conference in Ocean City. Brandon and I will be attending. October 9th, next board meeting. October 12th, Teacher of the Year Gala at Martins West. And then I just wanted to make a couple of announcements. In addition to the many classroom instructional activities to commemorate September 11th as Patriot Day, the following schools conducted special events. At Route 40 Elementary School, their 5th grade read some accounts from September 11th and watched some of the calling of names and the tolling of bells. At Swan Meadow School today, they had a moment of silence, and then each classroom reviewed and discussed appropriate activities, and then they watched a PowerPoint about the first responders' heroism, followed by discussions on how we could show appreciation to our own community first responders. Today at Southern Middle School, the Student Council put together a video presentation that was shown on their morning announcements to commemorate Patriot Day. Today at Northern Middle School, they did a tribute on the morning news, and they provided an educational video for staff to show, and they wanted them to know the basics of 911, but to help them understand the great sacrifice and bravery of those who were there. Today at Southern Garrett High School, the JROTC led a 911 flag ceremony this morning to honor the victims of the lives lost, and then to culminate the flag ceremony, they presented a folded flag to Lieutenant Cluse. And finally, at Northern this morning, Northern High School JROTC attended the 911 ceremony at the Flight 93 Memorial in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. The Mad Dog Morning Show had a 12-minute video for the school depicting events of 9/11 and had a moment of silence in remembrance of those victims and the first responders. Thank you.
Thank you. Under new business this evening, our first item of business is an OPEB presentation. So, Mrs. Schweitzer.
You're fine.
I'll just sit here. Good evening. The reason for this presentation is in preparation for the annual report, the annual financials presentation from the Vancouver Group, which is September 27th. So, as Finance Director, it's my job to keep the board informed and up to date on how our compliance environment is ever changing. And it's not always the most exciting part of being a board member, but it is your duty. So, we'll start here.
We're inspired. We're ready. You got it. Great open.
Okay, so what is OPEB? OPEB stands for Other Post-Employment Benefits. So, Garrett County Public Schools, our employees are compensated in a variety of ways. They receive their salary during their active employment, and then when they retire, if they have earned with their service, their amount of service, they earn a pension through the state of Maryland, as well as medical and prescription benefits through the county, the college, and the Board of Ed, under the Garrett County Employees Health Plan. So currently, our retirees receive medical and prescription benefits. Eligibility is based upon the years of service, and it's also, the benefit is determined by the age of the retiree. So the difference between pension and OPEB is that pension is based upon the time served as well as your salary. So it's more easily predicted. However, OPEB is a claims-driven expense. So it's much more volatile. So what is GASB? There is no Mr. Gatsby. There's a guy in an office that thinks he is Mr. Gatsby, but he's not. So the Governmental Accounting Standards Board was established in 1984, and it is, their standards are our authoritative compliance environment. The mission of this 7-member board is to establish and improve financial accounting and reporting standards, provide useful information to investors and other financial report readers or stakeholders, and to educate those stakeholders on how to most effectively understand and implement the standards, GASB standards. So, prior to 2007, the Board of Education of Garrett County did not have to report in any way any type of OPEB liability, plan, cost, anything. It was completely voluntary. Effective for fiscal year 2008, GASB 45 was implemented.
Fiscal year 2008.
And this did create the pronouncement, which created the requirement for specific disclosures. However, they're only note disclosures. It's not actually part of our financial statements. Then, effective for this coming fiscal year that we're getting ready to report, for fiscal year 18, GASB 75 has been implemented. And the goal of GASB 75 is to more effectively streamline all entities' reporting of the liability. So a lot of the choices that we had, that we could work with our actuary on valuing the liability, have been eliminated. They're basically being prescribed to us on how we have to exactly value our OPEB, as well as that full liability will be booked on our balance sheet. Okay, so how does the implementation of GASB 75 affect our elected board? Well, just like what we're doing right now, I've had an awful lot of continuing education on what this means for all of us. The finance staff has been working for the past 18 months. We've been working with the Rodehaver Group, as well as our partners with CBIZ, which are our actuaries, to make sure that we have the skills, knowledge, and expertise to help the board come up with a philosophy, work through, how our strategy of what we will do with our OPEB liability. Effective 6/30 of 18, the Retiree Health Plan Trust Agreement for the Board of Education went into effect. So that effectively eliminated the trust agreement that was for Garrett County employees, which was held by the college, the county, and the Board of Education. So those assets have been distributed and are held independent and separate of all three entities. It did not affect the plan that was offered. It did not affect the benefit. So then for reporting and auditing those changes, as you will see, once the audited financials are complete, there's going to be about 10 to 15 more pages. So it's going to be, there are more extensive disclosures. There's, like I said before, there's less flexibility in the valuation methods, which the flexibility that was removed and the items that were added also lead to more volatile expense recognition as well as asset recognition. So, what are the factors that drive OPEB liability? So, there are two categories of factors. One are the internal factors, and that those are the items that the board could affect. It's within their control in some way. And then, of course, there are external factors that are outside of their control. The internal factors consist of our census data, which is the retiree and active employees. It includes the ages, their length of service, and also the benefit that they currently receive, as well as we project the date of their retirement. So then the benefit offered is the second item. The benefit offered to pre-65 is the same as what is negotiated with all of our bargaining units. And then the third internal factor is the amount funded. And currently, the Board of Education is under a pay-as-you-go expense model. So that means that each year we pay exactly what is necessary to cover the benefits for our retirees, both pre-65 and post-65. However, if there was money that was funded into the trust that has been newly established that's separate and independent, that would effectively lower the OPEB liability. Then the external factors that we have are the interest rates and the healthcare trend. So the sensitivity of interest rates as it is inverse. So as interest rates decrease, our liability will increase. Because the idea is that you'll earn less on your trust, and so then you'll have to fund it more heavily. So as interest rates rise, the liability decreases. Then the healthcare cost sensitivity has a parallel relationship with the OPEB liability. So as healthcare costs increase, the liability increases. And unfortunately, we're in a market trend where healthcare increases are anywhere from 7.6 to 15%, depending on your area. So what's next? The next piece of exploring this OPEB issue is that on September 27th, Mr. Porter and the rest of the Rodenhaver Group auditing team will be here to present the audited financials to the board. And if you recall, last year, Mr. Murray was here, and he did pretty extensively try to warn the board of what this will do to our balance sheet. And so I just felt it was prudent to bring you up to speed so that when he starts speaking, you are at a better place. So after that point, that we have our financials and the big number is out there, I'm prepared to assist the board with developing their philosophy on how they would like to handle the OPEB liability. So that'll be our next step. Are there any questions?
No, I think I would just, make the comment that this is just an information session for us. There has been discussions in the public about us with OPEB benefits that we have not developed a strategy yet, and this is just our opportunity to get some more information.
Thank you, Ms. Switzer.
Any questions? No, the time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to the RISE strategic plan progress. I have SB, but we can do that first if you want. Do you want to do CIP first? That's fine. CIP?
Yeah, can we do that? Yeah,
That's
let's
fine.
do that.
Capital improvement plan.
Okay, I'm back again. Everyone's doing well. What we have to present this evening is the combined CIP. This is the overall capital improvement plan for all of our school facilities. Back in February, you all approved a partial plan, and then we came back with a full plan in July, which was reviewed, and that plan was approved in August. Well, what I failed to do was combine the two onto one document. So what you have in front of you today is the combined document of the approved 2020 through 2024 CIP for your official approval. Any questions?
I have a question. It looked like it was sent to us on an email earlier today. We have a printed copy, but it looked like on the email sent under the Southern High School front exterior renovation, did it say QZAB funding there? It looked like it had been written in.
That one was taken off the list because that's already been approved state-funded project.
Right, through QZAB, correct? Okay, that was my question, that it was through QZAB.
Everything you see on your list now is what will require local funding and state funding to complete these projects.
When do you submit to the state?
We submit, I believe it's October the 4th. There's a number of forms that are being filled out now, and I think the deadline is October the 4th when they have to be submitted. And that is just for fiscal year 2020 forms.
And if we don't follow through with those projects, we lose that money, correct?
Well, I wouldn't say we would lose the money, we just wouldn't have the opportunity to do those projects. I mean,
If something would happen that we would change our mind.
we can withdraw the project at any time, yes.
So the item that wasn't on the paper that we approved last month would have been the Southern High School fire alarm replacement, is that correct? That's one that was added on here? That would have been on the paper initially.
Entrance and the Southern High School fire alarm, you all approved those back in February,
Right,
so they were now added.
right. So they're all one.
Everything's on one sheet now, yes.
Motion to approve the new consolidated document.
Okay, Dr. Sorber has made a motion to approve this document. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Woods. Any further discussion or questions?
No, thank you.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. It is approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Swift.
RISE strategic plan.
Okay, they're gonna pull up. And can I have Mr. Wazowski and you're here? Oh, okay.
Well, thank you. We've made some progress on our presentation for the board for the RISE strategic plan, reforming and innovating, strengthening for excellence. And I want to update the board on that progress. But I also want to remind the public and remind the board of my goal as we move forward, and that is to provide a well-rounded, high-quality educational opportunity for every single student in Garrett County Public Schools, no matter where you live, no matter what school you attend, to provide that high-quality education, those opportunities. So one development, the Maryland State Department of Education, the Division of School Construction, we have invited them to Garrett County to help us examine enrollment trends and our building capacities, and then analyze our CIP that, thank you, you just approved, but to provide some guidance and insight so they have a better understanding of the projects that we will be asking for state funding. They're still, I believe Mrs. Schweitzer is coordinating that visit, and they are still working a date, but very soon, correct? Okay. All right, so now we have formed, we have the two subcommittees, the Educational Services Committee chaired by Mrs. DeVore and the Administrative Services Committee chaired by Mr. Lizlowski. We have now decided to break into two Educational Services Committees. One that will be facilitated by Mrs. Penny Profit. She's here with us tonight. Thank you, Mrs. Pumper. And the 6 to 12 will be facilitated by our secondary director, Mr. Paul Edwards. Who's also ready. Well, I kind of gave him up. Mrs. DeVore will continue to chair all things educational. Like I said, Mrs. Proudfoot will be the facilitator of the educational services. And the committee membership is 2 parents and/or business leaders. She has 2 teachers, 4 principals, 1 to 2 board members, which I'll explain in a minute, and central office staff. Those are going to be work session meetings. And these are the dates. All meetings will be held at the GIG building at 1 o'clock. I want for now board members to know September 14th, 18th, and 24th, because we're going to invite at least, 2 board members to attend each meeting. And again, I want to stress they're going to be work sessions, which I'll explain shortly. The second subcommittee facilitated by Mr. Edwards, again, 2 parents or business leaders, 3 teachers, 2 students, high school students, middle school, or just high school students, 4 principals, 1 to 2 board members, and central office staff. His meetings are different times, September 19th, September 27th, and October 3rd, different times of the day to facilitate additional students being able to come and board members, and all meetings will be held at the college as well. Okay. So what is going to happen at those work sessions? This is our first step in the process. Tonight I'm going to talk about grade band options and 2 alternate options that we may want the board to consider. And then at the work sessions, all of the documents that we have produced so far with the Big 12 strategic issues, with the building capacities, with the debt on each building, with the student enrollments, all of that in those work sessions will be examined as we look at some options for grade banding. Okay? The first option, and these are in no order, these are just options we're exploring right now, would be to revise the current grade band arrangement in most schools to 2, a pre-K to 6 and a 7 through 12. Now that's the first option. And what they'll do in those 3 work sessions is to identify, we're going to talk a little bit about that too, but identify the challenges, the barriers, what the pros and cons are of each one of the grade band alignments in order to make our recommendation to the board. Option B is to revise the current grade band arrangement in most schools to 3, but to look at a pre-K to 2 model, a 3 to 6 model, and a 7 to 12 model. And that can also be rearranged, could be a 3 to 7 and an 8 to 12, depending on the, what the board would like to see happen. There might be some advantages to having a pre-K to 2 school. We might be able to expand our early childhood offerings. So each option in the work session, the subcommittees will examine the pros and cons again, the challenges and the barriers to each one of the grade bands. And then option C, make no changes at all, and leave the 3 grade bands as they are, with the exception of Swan Meadow, which is currently K to 8, but leave the other schools at pre-kindergarten to 5, 6 to 8, 9 to 12. Okay? And that recommendation might include some programs that we may want to consider eliminating or programs that we may want to consider adopting. Okay, now there's 2 option alternates that we talked about in our large committee when we met last week. The first option would be maybe to create regional grade bands based on enrollment and building capacity. do a different model in the southern end than we did in the northern end. Or maybe it would be redistricting the southern end or the northern end. Again, right now, they're just options. The other option alternate, number 2, is to create a consolidated comprehensive high school. Now, I've had lots of people talk to me about this particular option alternate in the public. Right now, it is just an option that the board may want to consider. And as we do the work group with the facilitators, they will look at the options, the benefits, the challenges, and the barriers to each one of these grade band alternates. Okay, so the objective of the educational subcommittees, in essence, is to kind of perform their own SWOT analysis of each of the options and provide the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Prepare a list of advantages, challenges, and barriers to each one. And prepare a list of potential considerations of each grade band alignment for the board to consider. What I would like to do is for the board members to probably have 2, if they're available, to come to the subcommittee meetings. So far, we've had Dr. Sorber and Mr. Paul on our larger committees, but we would like additional board members to attend the subcommittee meetings. We can only have 2 at a time, because 3 is a board meeting. So we can only have 2 at a time, but I'd like for you to note the dates and see about your availability to participate in the work sessions, so you'll have a better understanding as we work through the challenges and opportunities. And then we will prepare one recommendation of our educational services with our chairperson, Mrs. DeBoer, pre-K to 12. Okay, we would like to get stakeholder feedback. We wanted to disseminate information tomorrow on 3 grade band alignments plus the alternate options discussed this evening. I want to get the board's thinking on that feedback because we haven't had the work sessions yet, so we may want to wait, but we certainly have it as an option that we can start soliciting feedback. But we know we'll be getting additional feedback as we move through this process about what each one of these grade bands may mean down the line, as far as the one high school, the consolidation, the redistricting, or maybe we just look at programs. So right now, everything is still on the table when we look at these options. In addition, we had one of our committee members when we met last month, or earlier this month, we want to do a roundtable community forum. And at that forum, we will openly discuss each of these options and all of the implications of each one. Whether, like I just said, whether it was a consolidation or redistricting or a program elimination, what each one of these would mean to the communities in which we serve. So I have a thank you. I haven't allowed my 2 my chairpersons to speak. So do you have anything? I think Mr. Wazowski, you had a couple of things you wanted to add.
On the administrative side, our work is twofold. We have an identified strategic issue to the process that we have to solve. We're talking about capacity. We have long-term deferred maintenance and a lot of things on that line. Working with the committee with the state will help do that. But the second part of this is to also take these options and realign everything in terms of services and resources that the administrative side to support that. What does a 7 to 12 high school look like? Does it need more lockers? All those things that will be determined from the instructional side we need to support. So it's twofold. We have to solve these strategic issues, sustainability of the school system going forward,
Big 12.
all those Big 12, but yet do everything we can to support any of the options. And that's the work that we will do. We'll provide all the data to what those look like. What the transportation looks like, what the food services look like, what the actual overall footprint, maintenance looks like in the school system, and a timeline to do so. Because a lot of these things we're talking about, there's processes and timelines that we'll also present to you. That's our work. Okay.
I think you summed up what we're gonna. We have a big task in front of us instructionally, but I think we're up to the task and looking forward to the input from the community members and the board.
Okay. Questions and comments from the board members, please.
Yeah, I guess, first of all, I want to say, again, continued thanks to everyone that's involved in the process. I think the goal is, at least in my mind, is that if you look in the past to some of the decisions that were made in regards to long-term strategy, I think there were a lot of questions left in the community. Why are you choosing this and not something else?
Absolutely.
And so what I think this presents us as a community is to allow some different major ideas of possible re-envisioning of our future, and look at them comprehensively in a transparent way. The only question I have is, what's the difference between an alternate option and an option? It looked to me like there were 5 options,
right.
So I don't know why calling them something, I don't know what that affords us by having one an alternate. If we're going to explore them as options,
yes.
we should explore them and look at those 5 different alternatives. And then I want to just, exactly as Rich eloquently stated, about them tying back to these issues. The reason I think that we're seeing a grade band alignment question, right now at this step, is it's very difficult, I think, for people imagining different futures without having that piece out there. Are you going to keep grade bands the same? Are you going to change them in some way? I don't want people to look at this and say, "Oh, this is, this is the whole plan." Grade band alignments. Absolutely not. I think this is allowing everybody to get into lanes.
Right.
Of possible solutions or possible ways to address some strategic issues, some reasonable, practical responses. And I encourage you, as Rich was saying, to tie them and keep in mind the issues that we identified, right? In terms of, the class sizes, the behavior issues, our connections with our communities and economic development, all the hard work that we did to make sure that we pay attention to all those issues. But I think there's great promise if we put the meat on these different options, that as the community weighs them, they may say, I definitely don't agree with that option, but I hope they look that we put it forward in a transparent way, and we're trying our best to weigh the pros and cons of some different options.
And Dr. Sir, I went back to this slide, just want to kind of explain when we were debriefing why we kind of said they were an alternate. Because the way I see it, when we do the meat work during the subcommittee meetings, is to come up with some recommendations for grade bands. And so our recommendation with the alternate may be 2 different pictures. Okay, this may be our recommendation based on all of those factors. And then we may come up with a grade band, and still the committees may recommend a comprehensive high school based on the recommended grade bands of all the other things that we may include in our recommendations. So that was just we can certainly change it back to 5 options. That was just our thinking on why we just called them alternates. When we looked at the grade band, there was really just a few really strong options that we had talked about in the meeting. Other questions from the board?
Well, this is the first that we've seen this as you present it, so people realize that. I have some concerns already. The first one is you have dates set. Well, the one is this Friday. Have the people been notified? It's going to be the parents or business leaders, teachers, principals?
Yes.
We have them all.
Yes.
Okay, I have another concern.
And yes.
And I brought this over before. On the 14th, 18th, and 24th, yes, the board members are aware of the date. So we haven't even discussed who can go and who can't. But they're all 1 o'clock in the afternoon. What if somebody works? It's convenient for someone here at central office. It's got to be the facilitator or chairperson. But if you're a person that works a 9 to 5 job or whatever, or like for your principals, your teachers, will we get a sub to fill in when they're at the meeting?
Prophet, do you mind if I defer to you on how you set up your...
I actually asked the business folk what they would prefer, and the teachers The issue is that in the evening they have soccer practice or soccer games or football games or things like that, and so they would prefer to have it during the day. So that's why I made it at those times, plus what was actually available for us to meet. The other thing is that a lot of the schools, since it's only going to be 2 teachers, are willing to help cover that rather than have to get a sub for them for those afternoons. And the one afternoon is actually the half development step development day. So they would be excused from that and wouldn't need a sub for that half day.
So it says 2 parents and or business leaders. Do we have both southern and northern end of the county represented?
Actually, we do. One is from the northern end and one is from the southern end.
Okay.
Is that the same as your committee? Same with the other?
So I guess the other one where the date or the time is 9 a.m., 1 p.m., and 4:30 for the ones that's already aware of these dates. That works for them.
I actually sent out a poll.
That's good. We were not
I'm sorry.
knew
I just
nothing
wanted
of
to
any
let
of
you know.
this. Like this is the first step, so that's why these questions are coming up.
Can I just piggyback?
Yes,
on the
go right
thing?
ahead.
No. So I just seen those meeting times too, and I did, a conversation I had with Barb of, are those, I guess, what are the goals of these sessions, and then where will the community be able to engage with real options, right? So this is again my kind of perspective on what's being presented here, is that this is an opportunity to flesh out and get some feedback on the development of these options. But then once there's kind of more meat, right, on some of these different possibilities, that there's then plenty of time. I don't know what the roundtable or other forums. I think we most definitely don't want to get to this point and not fully open up every opportunity for people to give feedback on those options. But I don't think that's what this is, right? These are working groups to put your proposals together.
Yes.
That will then there's another set of getting things out that we get public feedback.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
And all of the, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mrs. Proudfoot and Mr. Edwards, all of the folks that have been invited to serve on the subcommittee have agreed to the dates, they're available on those dates, and you sought feedback on alternatives for those dates. Okay? Yes. So the reason I'm putting them in the PowerPoint is to make the board aware so that they can look to see if there are some that they can attend. We wouldn't have to attend all 3 of each one, but we are certainly welcoming you to attend. These are, as Dr. Sorber says, these are the meat sessions where we're really going to start putting all the information we have from ed services and administrative services to starting to really take these options to get this, to address the strategies, to put the strategies in place.
Yeah, and when I'm sure as once this group does its work and then has some recommendations and looks at those different grade band alignments, pluses, minuses, and so forth, then there will be lots of opportunity for public feedback. So whether that's
we'll have online
so public forums and that type of thing.
Actually, our I wouldn't say you're new anymore, but our library director at our committee meeting suggested it. I see him back there. The community forums and the roundtable discussions, and it's been done very successfully as a way to get small groups talking on the same topics of the strategies.
Yeah, and so these groups are they're doing the work of trying to put some meat into all this, but then the public can certainly talk to us throughout the process as far as giving feedback.
It'll be similar to the SWOT analysis, where we do several.
There'll be more information before that they can take. Yes.
I just wanted to say that I like all of these options, and I really appreciate that students are on one of the committees. And I know that there are a lot of good options here that have been presented. I think that everyone's going to have different opinions about what they personally think should happen, and that everyone's going to have their own agenda. But I think with the committee, it would be good to get everyone's feedback.
And again, Katie, thank you so much. These are really just options. The board these are just options that as a larger committee we came up with together. We had 2 board members with us. These are just options that we came up with. There could be other options for other alignments or other ideas that we have as we work through, as Dr. Sorber says, now the meat of the process.
Mr. Woods first.
Just quickly, you asked the question, should we put it out for feedback immediately? I would say yes, especially given we're having a meeting Friday. We need to get it out as quickly as possible and get as much feedback as we can. It might be interesting to the audience if you kind of lead them through a timeline that we have set for ourselves to get to an end product. So that at least they have a general idea of what we've agreed to.
Our intention is in October to present all of this, all of the factors that are influencing the different grade band alignments, put that out again for feedback, get all of the public sessions done, get the online back in November, take all of that feedback, realign any decisions that we want to make for possible adoption either in November or December. I think right now, as far as our timeline, we're looking at December because we want to make sure we have plenty of time for those community forums and those feedback sessions.
And it also impacts our budget process immediately.
Yes.
What our final decisions are.
Right. If the option is to do nothing with the grade bands, then we have to look at other options to long-term sustainability issues.
I had one more. On the first slide, it said Maryland State Department of Education, Division of School Construction has been invited to Garrett County to help. So when did you say they were coming?
Well, we don't know yet. And by help, it's really more just an analysis and feedback. They don't really get into the options. They just help us look at what other districts do, what we may look at as far as our CIP. Mrs. Schweitzer, do you want to speak to that at all? I know we haven't set an official date yet.
Right. We have 3 dates that we're trying to get nailed down because there are 4 different people from MSDE that are considering to come to Garrett County. And so basically what we're looking for guidance from them is if we do choose one of these different grade band alignments, what exactly do we need to do for our facilities to be ready for those students? What do we have to do with the state? What do we have to do on the local level? What forms do we have to fill out? What's the timeline for it? I mean, you can't just say, take a school and change it to an elementary school without doing a full ed spec process. And we need their help. We don't want to miss something.
Right.
We want to make sure, just like how the board has continued to want to have this process be transparent, we as the management team want to make sure that we don't miss anything. That we're fully aware of, if we choose this option, what that really means to Garrett County.
And it's a good time for us to educate them of the unique facilities issues you have in a rural community where you can't just
Your values, values that we've set.
Let's drive them from Kitzmiller to the lake so they get a sense of how far a distance that is. And some of the discussions that we have that are unique in rural places when we think about establishing our footprint and preserving schools that make sense for rural places.
And even their coming here that's huge.
I mean,
because they realize how far it really is and how rural we are and what challenges we do have as a small rural county. I think Mr. Rosowski.
We have a meeting in the works for next week with the county leadership, county planner. We just haven't been able to coordinate everybody's schedules yet, so I didn't feel right to give you a date and time for that yet. But we are working on a meeting with the leadership of the county.
So who would be at that meeting?
We've confirmed Mr. Heinbaugh and the
Economic Development.
The Director of Economic Development, Mr. Huff.
That's 2 we've confirmed.
Okay, it seems like we would need at least 2 board members there also.
Oh, yes.
As soon as we have a date, you don't have a date confirmed, is what you're saying.
No, there's piecing their schedules together.
Maybe the president and the vice president, if they're not able to make it, they could offer. On the other meetings that you're talking about having, I believe that if board members wanted to go and observe, that 2 board members could participate, if that's what you're talking about. Other board members that wanted to go and be at that meeting but not participate in the meeting, I don't believe there's a problem with that.
Yeah, as long as it's not an actual meeting discussion, and I think they're right on that, so they can observe. And I think maybe
Can I go and be quiet? Can I go and be quiet?
You can try.
Maybe if you could have someone send out a paper so we could sign up
We just wanted to
for
get
the
them,
two.
we really
make
just
sure we have
confirmed
that.
them just in the last day or
So we can see which two are available to represent, and then any other board members would also be welcome.
Right.
I had another question on the MFT. So you give them dates that would work, and you're waiting to hear back from them when they can come. Will you let us know?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Do they plan on being here for one day?
We wanted them
or?
to come and really spend a lot of quality time seeing our buildings, looking at our geographic area. I'm not sure that that's what they're going to do.
Yeah, and they're basically giving us dates, and we're like beholden to their schedules. So
You're saying they'll come for one day?
We're not sure. Half a day. We were hoping they would spend a whole day.
Will they give us a written report back, an oral sit down as to here's what we think you need to do, or what are we getting from them? I suppose is what I'm asking.
Yeah, because
We're getting information that we'll include in our report.
Well, what kind of information are they going to give? I know what you told us, but do they need to come to see us to give us that information? I mean, forms and...
They really do, because I have spent an awful lot of time talking to the educational architect that is assigned to Garrett County, and she's at a point now where she knows that this plan, our development of a plan and strategic planning is at a point where the state needs to be involved. They need to help guide us to make sure, just like what I said, that we don't miss something.
And apparently they've done some listening tours before. They just haven't come.
I guess what I would expect from them, and I think it's a great idea, is get something in written form. This is what we saw. This is what we think will help you. Not that that's a recommendation we have to follow, but this is what we saw. This is what we think will help you. I would be very disappointed if we don't get something like that. I mean,
well, and normally, Mr. Swift, you can weigh in on this as well. Normally in October, there is a work session with the LEA management team, which includes the Director of Facilities and the Director of Finance, and sometimes the Superintendent, depending on what projects are happening. And you sit down with all these people that we're trying to get here, but at MSDE. And we go and we spend an hour and we write, we just lay it all out, what we're thinking about doing, what we want to do. And then we do receive feedback from all of those people. So we probably will, but we're still trying to solidify the agenda. And
yeah, those are, obviously it's a good idea that, some of us be incorporated in that walk through that day so we can hear the kinds of comments they make as well. But I think you understand what I'm saying. It would be nice to get something written as to what they think.
Something, if I could add, is they're advocates for the financing for us. I mean, they report to the IAC. They need to understand our challenges and our geography here, so that they can help us sell why we need a renovation or a new type of facility or something like that. So really, they need to see it, understand it, so they can advocate for us. And they also help us to make sure that we're filing the right forms, putting in the right communications, the right wording, and things like that. So they really help guide us through the process.
I remember, to piggyback on what Mr. Swift said, I remember when we went before the IAC, and it's at that time, and there's been some revisions, but at that time it was the comptroller and the governor and the treasurer, and they commended us, and they've commended us many times for our maintenance department and the fact that we don't ask for a roof every 15 or 20 years. We ask for a roof every 35 or 40. I mean, we make them last. Our maintenance department does an excellent job. But we'd like them to see it. We'd like them to see why now, we have these needs before us. And they can commend us some more for it. Go ahead.
I have one more question about that. I agree with what Mr. Wood said. It would be good to have if they give a report on things. But it's all about dollar and cents. Does it cost to have them come here, or is it
No, they work for
Well, I didn't know. I thought I would ask because...
No, if we were to hire some kind of an independent consultant to do this strategic planning for us, then yes, there would be a cost to that. But anytime employees of Maryland State, their job is to support the locals.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just to be clear, when we were saying about guiding us, guiding our thinking, supporting us, you know, we need to make a local, as you're well aware, a local decision that makes sense for us here. We're happy to have them support our process.
Okay, no other questions? Thank both of you. Thanks to Mrs. Crawford and Mr. Edwards, and of course to the rest of my team for all of the work that they've done, and to the board for your guidance as well.
Thank you. This time it's 7 o'clock. Move to public comment. Could you check and see? Thank you, Dr. Wilson. Thank you. We have one person signed up for public comment, and just a reminder that we are pleased to receive comments and ideas from the public pertaining to the policies, procedures, and practices of the school system. We ask that comments be limited to a maximum time of 3 minutes per individual. There will be no discussion or action taken at this meeting, but may be considered at a future meeting. Issues that are specific to individual employees should be referred to their immediate supervisor for appropriate consideration and review. Rude, slanderous, or threatening remarks or other behavior that is disruptive or interferes with the order of the meeting is not prohibited. So, Dr. Lori Filsinger Miller wants to address us. So, Lori, go ahead.
I just came to speak to see if a decision was made on the robotics policy. I was going to be on the committee, but was notified the morning before the committee was meeting, the afternoon before the committee was meeting, that they were meeting and they were inviting me, but I had a patient scheduled then, couldn't get off. But the biggest thing is I heard that there was a little bit of vagueness still with whether or not a teacher who coaches a robotics team would be given a substitute to go to like a national conference or a national event. And it just seems like the one meeting that was had, the policy that was written, is still very vague. Like it might be approved. So that was just my issue, is I think that's too vague, and I would like for it to be that, okay, we will approve 2. I understand some robotics teams have every parent is a Board of Ed employee. Well, every parent isn't a coach, so I understand we don't have to approve 10, but maybe say we'll approve 2 per team, or we'll approve 3 per team, and after that you have to ask for additional. But I just think it's vague. It still doesn't solve anything.
Yeah, to that, we're going to actually consider that
It's
in
a first
moment.
read.
So, and we'll be looking at it, and then we'll take so we'll certainly take that feedback under
That's the
consideration.
first time I've ever commented publicly.
That's good. So we appreciate that. So, Dr.
It'll be out for review.
Right, it's a first read this evening.
Some of the board members are seeing it for the first time tonight. It's been through our policy committee, but even in our policy committee, we said this really isn't a finished product because there were so many questions that we wanted to bring it to the whole board. So,
And then it's out for a month, and then it will come back. So tonight's the very first read of it.
So they can have public input. They can comment to it, correct? It'll be on the website after our board meeting, what there is right now. Is that correct?
And it is available online.
We did this policy just a little bit different by having those meetings where we met once here and once at the northern end to get input from the robotics teams, because, well, quite frankly, we wanted that input. We kind of wanted to front load the input from the robotics team. So that's why we had those meetings. But this is the first read for the board.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else that would like to comment tonight? All right. We're moving on then to our policies and procedures. Let's do the student artwork presentation then.
Can I say tonight, didn't some students in robotics meet with senators, or what was on my mind?
At the,
didn't you just do that?
On Saturday at the...
was that pretty cool? Yeah.
That was awesome. His brother, there's one picture of his brother hanging with both U.S. senators from state of Maryland. That's awesome.
Awesome.
Some attention to Garrett County.
Yeah, at the college, right? At the at the STEM building dedication, the 1629 was doing a presentation, and both senators were there. It was,
awesome.
And they got their picture. It was really good to have them both here.
Very cool. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was cool.
Well, thank you.
Okay, artwork. We're gonna do first. Artwork. I believe that's.
Joy, that's it. All right, so we're going to honor some students tonight whose artwork was selected by the Fine Arts Committee to be purchased and displayed at the central office. So Mrs. Penny Proudfoot.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Every year, our fine arts teachers and their students prepare the Student Art Festival. It's usually in April. And I would hope that everybody's been to this because it's really a wonderful, wonderful event. And the parents come out and the kids come out. And there are visual art displays. There's also choral presentations, band presentations, and it's just really a nice event. But every year we choose 2 items from the visual arts to purchase and display here at the board office. And this year, our 2 winners. One is from Northern High School, Ella Ashby. She was in 9th grade last year, and
I think she might be out there. Are we still in the hallway?
Ella, are you out there?
Come in.
Come on down.
And
Come
then,
on. And Mom, everyone come in.
board member want to read it?
Oh, no. Go ahead.
So,
Ella, who is still out in the hallway?
yeah, bring
Is there
family in.
more family out there? Ella's family needs to come in. Are you sure?
This is a big deal. You need to come in and celebrate for her.
If they say they're okay.
Well, she entitled this project Koi Colors, and it just caught a lot of folks' eyes, and because of that, we determined that that was one of the projects that we wanted to purchase. And Ella is now a 10th grader at Northern High School, but she did this as a 9th grader, so it's really awesome. And so I'll let you hold that for now. We have to take it back, though. But Garrett County Board of Education Certificate of Recognition presented to Ella Ashby in honor of this accomplishment, because that is absolutely beautiful. And you're welcome, thank you. And this is your prize for that. And it's just not a prize, it's kind of like
We actually purchased this.
we purchased. So it's not a prize, it's a purchase.
That's their first
You sold your first
sale.
That's really neat. So congratulations to you. And thank you.
Come in so you can get a good picture.
And then when we do the other one, let's get one from everybody.
Tom, you ruined that artwork if you were behind
Well, don't go away. We're going to get one with everybody. Yeah. Don't go too far. She just took her check.
And the next student is Lydia Seacrest.
This is beautiful.
And she, last year when she created this,
Come on in.
come on in, was a 4th grader at Absolute Elementary.
Oh my goodness.
Now you're in 5th grade, right? And as you can see, I mean, look at this. Our students are so talented. We really do have a lot of very talented students. So this is awesome. And congratulations to you too. Okay. Garrett County Board of Education Certificate of Recognition presented to Lydia Seacrest and your outstanding accomplishment in art. Isn't that wonderful? I'll let you have that. And thank you very much. So,
Here, I'll do this. Mrs. Prophet, you should tell her what we said when you saw this one. My favorite color is purple. So I'm
and we were arguing over those. I was like, well, I like them, just put one of them by my huge.
I wanted to put the baby so you could take it with you.
Take one more.
Congratulations. Absolutely beautiful. Oh, wait, you're on again. Thank you. Stay here. Baby's colder there.
Can you hold it? You're okay.
Really proud of you, girl. Has to go to your college fund. Yeah. She can do it in oh my
Mrs. Brewer does a wonderful job getting them framed. We get them framed in unfinished business.
Thank you.
They do a very nice
Congratulations.
job for us. Congratulations. Yes,
Good seeing you.
Thank you, Mrs.
Oh, yes. Mr. Edwards, we now get to hear from you. Not as exciting of a topic, but it might be the people that want to graduate. So. Maryland and Garrett County graduation requirements policy, and this is up for action tonight.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tough act to follow. I do have policy IKF. We went through the policy review committee. I think it was presented to you all last meeting. I think the only concerns were formatting, and I think we got fixed with the exception of number 5. Which was the request by the administrative team, secondary ed, to not specifically list the testing because the ever-changing format of that is changing again now as we speak, so that we would just list the tests in the planning guide, and the policy states that that would be the requirement. Seems to make a lot of sense. Any other questions?
Now I see the wording that I had requested is put in there, just to make it more easier for parents to understand.
Ms. Catul, you have a question?
Yeah.
Is there a reason why in the table across from technology, oh my goodness, education, there are no options?
The technology education, it's below that. It says advanced technology or career tech ed. We need to add that. That's a good catch.
Yeah, because there's nothing there.
That's a great catch. It needs to be IED, POE, or computer science.
Right.
That would be the change. Good catch.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you look at our budget?
Yeah.
See what you can find in there. No, that was great.
Any other questions?
Said next year.
Okay.
So that will be a change to what we approved here. Okay.
I did ask a question, and I know we had a chance to talk, Paul, but the work ethic designation, I know it's sometimes called a work ethic diploma, but it's not really a diploma. It's not something that's covered in our policy. It's simply just a program, a value-added designation that you're doing. So that program does not. There's no policy we would approve for that. It's a programmatic designation.
Correct, and there's no bearing on graduation one way or the other.
Thank you.
Yep.
Other questions on this one? If not, is there a motion to approve it?
So moved.
I'll
second.
Okay, so Monica and second by Tom. Any further discussion?
That's with
that change. Just noted. Any other questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor of approving policy IKF, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. It is approved. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'll make that change, and that is a huge benefit on the testing piece.
And then the next part is the procedure.
Yeah, the procedure IKFC, programs leading to high school completion. This is a procedure, not policy, but I understand there were a couple of questions, and when this was gone over previously, I do want to point out the PSAT testing did change recently, and they added the zero back in to basically mirror the SAT. So that change is indicated there on 7C under early college admissions program criteria, and that will also be changed under I, early vocational technical program selection, where the PSAT score is as well.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on the procedure, which is informational? Yes.
I saw that you did change the PSAT score, but then under the early vocational technical program, under 5A.
Just mention that.
Yes.
Okay.
That one
will be
says
switched.
I'm so sorry. I was.
No, that's okay.
When we were talking.
Ms. Siebold was distracted.
That's what happens when you sit next to Charlotte.
So we said
I was explaining the last change.
At least she's paying attention.
Yeah.
No, I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, but you saw it in there, and so the rest of us didn't. All right. Thank you, Mr. Edwards.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, policy EEA, student transportation policy. I just love some of these letters. EEA.
Good evening. This is the first read for EEA under transportation. An effort to upgrade the format and obviously update some of the language within the transportation policies. I present to you today that the purpose of this policy is to lay out the parameters for our student transportation services. The one change is we are exclusively using school bus contractors. The old language, at some point, the school system did own a few buses. Talk about the rate of payment that we provide for the services. I had respectfully requested from one of the board members to at some point provide you with that table of rates each year and what that looks like. So I will do that. And then the last piece added talks about the bus contractor's responsibility. A lot of this language appears in the school bus contract. I feel that if it's in the policy, it will also give us leverage in the event we have a contractor that doesn't adhere to some of these overarching things. So it's written into board policy. We also talk about we are responsible for providing the liability, property damage insurance. And then C lays out who's responsible for all that, which is mainly me. Okay.
Thank you. So this is policy first read. Are there any questions?
We made it very clear, just some wording changes, basically. Language update is the term to use.
So this will be back next month for consideration. EEC is the communication of student transportation. We're looking at the policies and procedure.
Yeah, this just talks about that the board recognizes the importance of communicating our policies and our methods of doing so, and the responsibility and methods of how I will do that with regards to the website calendar, student handbook, social media, so on and so forth.
Okay. Questions on this one? Okay, so that'll be back next month for approval.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we move to Mr. Trotwine and IHCG robotics program policy and procedure. This is a first read.
IHCG and we will be able to put the procedure back to
Well, the board members all have it. And it'll be available after tonight's meeting for anybody to see it.
Okay. Well, we've got some slides that I'm going to refer to, so first of all, I want to thank you very much for the time tonight. Thank you for your support over the years. when I describe our robotics program here in Garrett County, it's best described as a perfect storm situation where the community, the public schools, the county government, just the local businesses and corporations and volunteers and mentors just come together and make it happen. And without everyone's support and help and understanding and getting through things, it just would not be possible. In fact, I am convinced, I will go on record, this is being recorded, something like our high school, something like our total robotics program in Garrett County would only be possible in Garrett County, and I'm proud of that. So thank you very much. Okay, so what this policy and procedure is an attempt to, it's an attempt to capture what the program has evolved into over the past 17 years. We had our first robotics team in 2002, and the program has grown from that, and actually had roots before that. But it's been a while getting to the point that it's at now, and it's certainly evolution as to where it's ended up here. So in the policy and procedure, what we tried to do is capture pretty much the state of the program as it is now, with some just putting everything in writing of sorts and setting some expectations. Okay, so with that, you all have the policy procedure. We'll talk a little bit about the policy first, and what the policy does is it pretty much establishes the purpose of the robotics program in Garrett County as far as it relates to the teams that are supported directly by the Garrett County Public Schools. What the policy also does is it recognizes that there's other organizations in Garrett County that have robotics programs as well, just like 4-H and GEARS and so on and so forth, but that this policy and procedure only applies to teams that are Garrett County Public School teams. So that's pretty much what the policy does. It also establishes our affiliation with FIRST Robotics. FIRST it's an acronym. It stands for Inspiration, Recognition of Science and Technology. It is the premier robotics organization for youth robotics programs in the world. We started again with FIRST Robotics 17 years ago. There's lots of reasons for going with FIRST. It's evidence-based, standards-based. Its method of operation is through mentors, volunteering your time. FIRST is more than just about robots. It encourages partnerships, entrepreneurship, leadership, and so on. It is scalable, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. It has 4 age-level programs, each building on each other and supporting each other. With FIRST, there's an opportunity for students involved with FIRST programs to apply for up to $8 million in scholarships, so it's very real life in that regard. And it is community school based, and it gives us an opportunity to make a difference. And that's the biggest that's the biggest advantage of having a FIRST program in your school district, is because it gives students and everybody an opportunity to make a difference. Okay, so again, there's all kinds of statistics to back up why FIRST is important to have in our school system. So over 500,000 students are involved in FIRST programs in over 95 countries, and the list just goes on and on. And there's all kinds of impact statements that we can make about FIRST robotics. First, I'm just going to leave that there for a minute. And that basically is what the policy establishes. Now the procedure, again, gets to the nuts and bolts. And
Chuck, can I interrupt you for a second?
And the why. Yes, sir.
With the policy.
Yes, sir.
Let's start with something. the gray area, there is some gray area in my mind that I need to get around. Part of the gray area is it is co-curricular to a degree. The degree stops to the degree that when we become competitive, okay, and our goal is to become competitive, which is the goal of the high school robotics team. I mean, it is a competitive organization.
Well,
I mean, I know it does other things. I'm aware of that. But ultimately, we go to contests and we compete. Sure. That muddies the waters to some degree, and the reason it muddies the waters is because we keep referring back to our extracurricular handbook. Now, the extracurricular handbook deals obviously with competition and who's eligible for competition, how many people we support for competition, all those types of things. So I do think that in the policy statement, we need to either be clearly co-curricular or clearly extracurricular. Because I think if we muddy the waters, then I have to tend to say, okay, if we're looking at this as a competition team, then we have to go by the same guidelines the mock trial team has to go by, the marching band has to go by, the football team has to go by, everybody has to go by.
I understand. I think part of the problem is with me then is I didn't clearly understand the definition of co-curricular. I took the definition of co-curricular to be purely supporting the instruction, the direct instruction that's going on in the classrooms. That's making it the difference between co-curricular and extracurricular. To me, co-curricular is a subset of an extracurricular activities. So in other words, all co-curricular activities are extracurricular activities, but not all extracurricular activities are co-curricular.
But I can make that counter argument. If I'm a football player, I am expressing my physical education skills. So it's part of physical education. I've had these discussions many times. But what I'm trying to do is so that there is no clear gray area. Because as you know, I'm a huge supporter of this program.
I understand.
And I don't want it to become a program in which we're second guessing. Okay, what did we do that we maybe should have done because we want to do it right the first time. But I agree with you in concept. Co-curricular is an extension of something that we are doing in our schools. In this case, STEM. That is taking those elements and using them in an extracurricular way. But once we use them in those extracurricular way, we have to be careful that we don't become extracurricular, because then that sets up a whole different set of rules that we have to play by, according to our own policy, which says our extracurricular handbook governs all extracurricular activities.
Okay.
Now how we do that, I don't have an answer other than
I had basically a concern with the same thing he did, because this is our first, we just got it just a couple days ago. Like on procedures, the very bottom line says, to honor the efforts of those students who volunteer their time in order to make FIRST programs a success, GCPS/GACO will expect parents and students to meet all participation requirements as set by GCPS and participating with GACO, that are consistent with GCPS policy and procedure governing extra and co-curricular activities. When you look at the policies, like it's J students, the number is JJA, it's considered curricular/co-curricular/extracurricular activities. And then if you look at the handbook we have, it's for extracurricular activities. So that wording, I think that's one thing we need to...
Just muddy the waters.
I have other questions too, but that's one thing that I think we need to make sure. Yeah.
Sure.
Because we referenced that, but it had... The actual policy procedure had all 3 words, and in this one, it only had 2 words. So I didn't see another.
Yeah, again, that's my fault if I'm not clear.
But this is good because this is the first read.
It's understanding co-curricular to me was a subset of extracurricular.
Trust me.
So
it's hard to delineate it, and that's why I want to make sure we do that.
And it's hard too because. to be quite honest, when we were asked to do this policy and procedure for the robotics program, my first question to Karen and Penny were, how are we different than any other extracurricular
That was your
activity?
first question.
That in order, in my mind, to know where to start.
And that might be the direction that we end up going, which is,
Right.
I'm fine with either of those.
Right.
But I don't want us to go two directions.
Exactly.
Because we're going to get ourselves in trouble. We will, because there'll be those people who say, wait a minute, this is extracurricular, but you're not making them do the same thing you're making my trial kid do. The other people are going to say, no, this is an extension of their STEM classes in school, so therefore they're not under that same set of expectations. So I think, when I read it and looked at it, I in my mind, I'm kind of thinking, okay, the two lower levels of the first program, the pre-K and the first, those to me are not competition. Those are building upon those are the building blocks of the program. Sure. Once we get to high school, we're taking those building blocks and we want to show people we're better than you. At least I'm glad we're better than everybody.
That's not the philosophy.
And if we're going to do that, then I think we need to pay attention then to the purpose of the program, which is the first part A of the policy part, where the purpose of why we have this program, and that's to provide a value-added resource to the existing curriculum at both the elementary and secondary levels. Provide an opportunity for students to gain experience in the engineering cycle as it applies to robotics, problem solving, research, computational thinking, coding, entrepreneurship, leadership, team organization, and communication skills. Provide an opportunity for students to form mentorships with professionals in the community, as well as younger students in respect to their robotics teams and endeavors, so that the older students are actually mentoring the younger students in the program. Prepare students for the next level of STEM engagement. Form partnerships with community organizations, government agencies, corporations, businesses that are mutually beneficial to all, and provide an opportunity for students to develop a passion for all things STEM and to use their passion to the benefit of others. So, yeah, the word competition isn't there. Maybe.
So I think, I don't want to speak for Tom, but I think it's not really an issue of semantics in terms of co-curricular, extracurricular. I think we're just, and what we need to reflect on over the, as we think about this this policy is, where does it fit in our policy frameworks in our system, right? Do we have coaches? Do we have coaches? Should we be treating our senior robotics like we're treating our athletics program? Is that a useful heuristic, or is that something it's not that useful and we want to look at something else? And I think that's what we're kind of getting at, because we want to treat. If we have an expectation as a board that this is academic enrichment, where some of the budgeting, exists in academic enrichment, and try to situate our investment in that kind of way, it helps us make sense of how we're supporting your different functions. Or should we put it with our overall extracurricular activities to kind of gauge? We're trying to gauge. What's an appropriate kind of contribution, or what's an appropriate function in the policy language. So I think that's it. I think we're just trying to say this is obviously something that's different from others, and we're trying to find a place to situate it within the frameworks we have so we treat it fairly and appropriately, and so it grows and succeeds. That's really.
And Katie, to tell you, we are like an athletic team in that we do have great point at expectations of our students. In fact, they're higher than what's set forth in the extracurricular.
And that statement is the one that I think I'm trying to articulate is your expectations are greater, which is great, but would that negate somebody else from being a part of the team, even though it's lower, when they would come back to us and say, as a board, but wait a minute, your handbook says this is the standard. So, does it make sense?
Oh, no, absolutely, absolutely. And again, you know, all of this has just evolved over 17 years, and it's mainly come from just evolution, okay, and with an interest of what can we do for our students, and so all this has evolved. And again, I venture to say there's not another program like it anywhere.
I agree.
So again, there's one of the things that I appreciate about this process is that it is bringing up questions like you raised in order to make it more robust, more valid, and which I'm happy to try to answer those questions.
In the policy part, that's the only thing that I would say is I don't know how you clean that up. I don't know. I just think we try to articulate it.
Yeah, I think once we started in the policy committee, we go, okay, well, no, it doesn't fit there. So over 17 years, some very hardworking people have put this together, and it has worked so well for us. And you know, we've got a community that's given, we've got an instructor that's given, you know, way far away from what you would expect of volunteers and community. So I think we know that it's a plus for our students. So, and you know, it's like, how do you raise money? Okay, well, how does the sports team, they have a boosters club, so do we need a boosters for this? So that because those monies have to be turned into us, and we have to account for them in our audit.
Right.
So all of those things started coming out, but I mean, eventually we would have been faced with this, and I think we have gotten to the point that we do need to figure out exactly where we're headed with this, and try to preserve as much of what we have as possible, but be able to keep the program going that we have and the children involved in it, but also to be accountable and all of that. As far as moving forward with it. But when you've got 17 years of somebody working very hard and all this community involvement and doing this and doing that because that's what people would offer to do, then you've got a lot of things being done differently. And I mean, each team is different. They go out and they get their, do their own fundraisers and all kinds of things like that. I think for the high school team is actually what we're looking at mostly with this. And to get something together that we can keep what we have and protect it as much as we can.
I agree, 100%. It's more. What's happened is it's become so successful. It's morphed into so many different avenues. That now we need to say, okay, how do we encompass all those avenues under our umbrella? Because they're our students.
Absolutely.
We have a responsibility to ensure that they're have all the benefits that all other students have.
But we are allowing for, we can't look at it as an extracurricular activity when we look at our programs for the elementary and middle schools, because in our extracurricular activities in elementary and middle, we don't have that, and Maryland doesn't allow that. So in that way, that's kind of part of what happened with bringing the co-curricular in, is because that's kind of our model at the elementary and middle, which we, again, are not allowed to have for athletics.
The challenge comes at the end. It's all co-curricular for me until we get to the end. Then it gets muddied a little bit. But again, I'm going to support whatever. I'm going to support it. I just think there are ways that we need to be careful. Okay? Or we'll put ourselves in a corner somewhere that we don't want to be.
I had a couple more. I think I remember what kind of brought us to this point is we said it was good. We requested to have a policy and procedure, something as a guiding tool to go by. And I remember one of the things I think was if a student would have to miss school to go for competition, was they excused or not excused? So it's good that we get everything in writing. But on the one It says what students, parents, mentors, and coaches can expect from GCPS/GACO.
You're on the procedure, right?
Yeah, she's in the.
Yeah, that's what I'm on right now.
Okay.
Yes. Let's see. I had several things on here. Yeah, I just lost my finger on it.
The field trips with the exception?
Okay, yes. With the field trip exception of the FRC, participation in various programs does not require students to be absent from the school day unless teams advance past the state championship level. It does require that parents are responsible for transferring their own students. Should teams advance it said a couple things. It said, should teams advance past state championships, students belonging to GCPS/GACO teams will have absences counted as field trips for the duration of the tournament, including up to 1 day of travel to and from the tournament. Okay.
So is that what we're doing now? Is that the way it's counted?
Yes. There was some question about it up to last year.
Yes.
But this makes it so.
But there's some wording in here. None of my children did robotics, so it's just someone looking at it. Some things to me are kind of wishy-washy. I'm not sure. Like if I would have to refer back to this, I don't know if it would be for or against my concern. Like it's not really in black or red, I don't think. Like on definitions, it says all 4 programs have been established as co-curricular school-sponsored activities in Garrett County Public Schools and operates according to availability space, funding, and volunteers required to operate the program. But just where it says according to availability, like that would be availability of funding, availability of volunteers, and then even later, again, under what students, parents, mentors, and coaches can expect from GCPS/GACO, registration fees. And then it talks more about them, but at the last sentence it says, in accordance to the purpose, GCPS/GACO has 4 each program. However, budget priorities should leave some contingency for these situations. And then, and it says registration fees, past state championships. It has that word again. May be paid pending available funds. There's too many things. I'm not quite sure. I mean, I understand it always comes down to the budget, money's there, but there's so many things because what if a parent would think, or one of the coaches, we advanced, we can go compete, we're paid for, and then bring it to the board, and they said, well, we didn't have that money budgeted there. So I know they fundraise, but there's just some things, I don't know if something can be worded differently, but some things are just kind of, like if we brought it for discussion, I would get this from it, and you'd get that from it. So then we might be back to where we are, not...
Yeah. I think,
I mean, it's going to be good. It's going to be out for a month for people to review and give feedback, and then we'll talk about it next month at our board meeting. I'm sure we'll be back up there. And Mrs. Stilson, I'm sorry that you wasn't involved, because we did request that we did want some parents involved that have kids on the robotics team. But please look at it and give feedback.
Under the procedures, the one that really we need to get, here's the one that needs the most clarification, Chuck, and it's under administrative procedures. And it says, operate within the policy and procedures that GCPS has established for all its extracurricular and co-curricular programs, including robotics. So when you throw that extracurricular in there, when you go to the handbook, this handbook, you'll only find the word co-curricular in there about twice. That has no meaning to it. It's just words. So there are no guidelines in this book for co-curricular, as I'm sure you well know that now. So you have to defer then to extracurricular guidelines because there's nothing guiding you co-curricularly. So I really think one of the first things that we need to do to get the policy in the right place is to create a policy of what is co-curricular in Garrett County. What is it? What are the procedures that guide co-curricular activities? And I think we have a co-curricular activity called robotics. But absence of that, it always defers back to extracurricular. So it's the only thing we really have guidance in.
Sure.
And I'm sure some people probably would know what this is. Under administrative procedures, when you go down second bullet, it says be coached by at least one employee of Garrett County Public Schools and or an approved GCPS volunteer under existing GCPS policy and procedure. All volunteer coaches for FIRST robotics programs must also meet the requirements of the FIRST Youth Protection Program. Like that FIRST Youth Protection Program, where's that information? Is that something you get when you are on the Lego?
Yeah, when we register coaches for a team, they have to go through a background check first. So this is the other odd thing while we're talking about all stakes.
Just so we understand it.
I understand. That's it. So two things, just so I can get things straight in my mind. I'm not a policy guy. I'm just a math teacher. So
Do a binary check.
do binary. Okay.
0, 1.
Okay. You need more placement. I can only go up to 5. Yes. And after that, I'm done. So anyways, this is suppose we had a really successful soccer program at part of the school system. And they were doing great things. And the older kids were actually doing camps for younger kids. So that would be something like the robotics program is grown into now. And in that, the school system affiliated itself with AYSO soccer. Okay, so AYSO in that situation is as first is to the robotics situation. Okay, it's just a program that we've affiliated ourselves with, and within that affiliation, there's some guidelines that affiliation wants to make sure that it's covering as well. So just the same as AYSO and Mountaintop soccer coaches have to go through their own background check. So does First Robotics. That's just to cover the organization. So yeah. But again, what gets so sticky is I don't think there's anywhere else where we would say we are an affiliate of any
Of ASYO.
of AYSO or anything like it. As we were saying, we were going to be an affiliate of First, which is a great thing. I am from First, but there's other robotics groups out there, organizations, all kinds of things. But so that's what kind of.
And our affiliation, where the 5 of us have to be careful, is our affiliation with that group cannot conflict with what our board policy and procedures are.
Absolutely.
We have to see what they are and make sure they don't conflict in any way, shape, or form.
Absolutely. And I can see where they would not.
I imagine
they would only
Carney. According to policy JJA, so we do have definitions for co-curricular.
Yeah, there's definitions.
So co-curricular educational extension experiences which are an extension or enrichment of the regular program offerings. extracurricular educational experiences not found in regular program offerings and or are essentially competitive in nature or special interest groups. Specific school activities are determined as curricular, co-curricular, or extracurricular by building level administration in collaboration with central office administration. Specific school activities are determined as curricular, co-curricular, or extracurricular. That repeats itself, but that's the same thing. So it's up to the building level person.
Well, that's the extent of what we say as a system that co-curricular is, which is, I guess, what I'm trying to say. We need some work done there. We should do.
Which we can look at that policy, but it looks like at this point it's up to the building office administration,
In conjunction with us.
in conjunction with central office to call it what they want.
Yeah.
But that is the.
I just had two more. They're kind of quick. And I remember, I think in that discussion, not only one of the concerns was if the students go to compete and they miss school, is it excused? And I believe the other one was for your coaches. If they go for professional leave, how does that work? And you have under here what students, parents, mentors, and coaches can expect from GCPS GACO and a professional leave / substitutes. Professional leave may be granted. That word is questionable. It says may be granted for teachers who serve as mentors and coaches of GCPS / GACO teams to attend competitions past the state level. And then we have in parentheses, I don't know if we're going to take that out, pending available funding.
I think that's the whole crux of the matter right there.
I guess the question is, because I don't totally know the whole robotics problem just because it's not something my children decided to do. When they go, are most of these things held like evenings and weekends? Do they actually miss much school, the students and the coaches, unless they go to state and nationals?
Okay, so going back to this chart here, okay. So first has 4 age grade level programs. It has first legally junior, of which we started with that in Garrett County 4 years ago. Last year we had 4 teams. This year we'll have about twice as many as those. It looks like we have first legal league, which is grades 4 through 8. So we start that as early as the 4th grade. This is the program we've had in operation the longest, for 17 years. Last year we had 12 teams. This year it looks like we're going to have around 14 teams. Okay, possibly one more than that. First Tech Challenge. This is we started this again 5 years ago. This is our 5th year. Last year we had 5 teams. This year we're going to try to support 7 teams. And then of course we have one FRC team, GACO 1629. So there's lots of teams out there. All right, and again, it could not be possible if it wasn't for parents and teachers volunteering their time to make this possible.
Right.
Okay. So that's the big thing. How First Lego League is implemented it depends on the team and the situation. I know Miss Moss, she's still here. Okay. You embed it in your school day. So your kids meet on their teams during the school day, and you have it as an embedded school activity, which makes it, in my mind, co-curricular because it's part of the instructional day. Okay.
In my mind, it makes it curricular.
Okay.
But they compete. Well, but it's curricular because it's in during the school day.
Sure. So that's one model. Okay. We have Next Gen, who meets Thursdays after school. Okay. And they have students from several different schools on their team, and they are very competitive. So that's still the same program, still First Lego League.
Right.
And there's over 36,000 of these teams worldwide. 36,000 of these teams. That's more people than we have in Garrett County. 6,500. And I'm here to tell you today that all 36,000 of those teams aren't alike. I mean, they're all different in some way. And FIRST has crafted its program in order to be that way, that it fits a lot of different situations. So we have those two different models. We have 3 teams that meet in my home on Sunday afternoons at 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and 6 o'clock. I mean, there's no way to kind of, again, all this has evolved over these years.
Right.
And so...
I guess I'm trying to understand how many times possibly, it was about the students' absence, the coaches.
Okay.
Like that part, to understand.
Let's go through that then. Okay, so with First Lego League and First Tech Challenge, these are one-day competitions that students are preparing for. And they're usually on Saturdays or Sunday. So there's, in order to get to the state championship in either of these 2 programs, there's qualifiers that the teams have to qualify to go on to the state level. The state championship is still a Saturday. It's at UMBC, but it's still Saturday. So basically, these teams can get to their state championships without having to miss school.
Okay.
And now, should one of these teams go on past the state championship, then there's going to be it's going to be a 3-day event.
And we've had some national
in Detroit or wherever. So it's going to be they're going to require field trips at that point to absences to be counted as field trips. FRC 1629 GACO is a different animal in that regard, because our competitions are always 3-day competitions.
Okay.
So it's and there's other things that we do other than competitions that would require students to miss school from time to time.
So it would be more to impact having to miss school or get out early would be more your first robotics.
Yes. The 1629. And again, there's we only have one FRC team in Garrett County.
Okay.
It's we have students from both high schools on that team.
The reason we landed on May is because there's no limit to the number of First Lego League, First Tech Challenge teams. I mean, they just become, and we don't want to limit them.
Right.
But we can't just say we have unending funding and anybody who wants to have a First Lego League or a First Tech Challenge team can have a team, and we will take the teachers out of the classrooms, and if they were to win beyond the state championship. But even before we put that wording in for this, like, we had people wanting to take professional leave at the beginning, like the first student day. I forget what that was about, but we felt like we needed to get a handle on how often we were taking teachers out of classrooms from in front of children, and how many teachers we were taking, because there were no parameters on it, and anybody could, like, you could develop a team and then.
But sometimes a teacher might ask for professional development or take a personal day because they had a child competing, not that they were the coach, right? So then it wouldn't have been. Is that what you're saying also?
Well, it was a little gray there for quite a while.
But I mean, some of them though would have come for taking it as a parent standpoint, not as. Because it says in here that there's going to be so many coaches per team. I've seen that on here. It was listed.
Yeah,
that would be. It could be under the professional development.
It's under professional league substitutes.
Yes.
Underneath.
You was clear with that.
Well, we are now. That's what we're trying to get clear here. Because it was never. Sometimes it wasn't clear who was a coach and who was a mentor and who was a volunteer. And as the teams got better or moved on, extra people would then want to
I
travel.
guess it'd have to be written down somewhere, though. Like with sports, it would come to somebody. This is the coach for this team. This is the.
Well, the difference is once you get to the extracurricular side, we have a defined number of coaches that we support as a system and pay for,
Right.
which is negotiated with the bargaining unit as well, and we also have a defined number of days that students can get out before 3 o'clock. Not including state competition, or national competition.
It said there was something with. That's why we have to have the word the same under policies. Curricular, co-curricular, extracurricular. Somewhere it was, yeah. There was something about 1 o'clock. Yes.
It's 3 o'clock. I think it used to be 3 times. That's the change.
Well, I just wanted to, like, if we put it under the extracurricular category, I feel like it's like trying to fit it in a box it doesn't necessarily fit in, and I'm not sure if it's in any of the boxes, but anyway. So if you limit the number of days that students can get out, a lot of the students at the high school level are the ones that are going into the classrooms and teaching the STEM lessons. So if you limit those days that they can be out, then it's kind of like limiting GACA's vision.
That makes sense.
It makes sense to a degree with me, but there has to be a parameter that we deal with. We can't just say unlimited, or we'll leave it up to one person to decide the amount of days that they're going to get out. Because we don't do that for anything else in our system. Nothing else.
That was the point. That was the point in us trying to put in some parameters last year. And we don't do that at the elementary or the middle school level for anything. We don't do that. And so, but we were trying to acknowledge that robotics is a little bit different. It's not, and we're trying to support the elementary and the middle school programs. That's why we're trying to that's why we landed on, well, we need to do a policy. If we're going to treat it differently, then it needs to have a different, a standalone policy. And we're just as confused. And
well, I think the bottom line is we're all supportive, but we want it to work. But we want it to work that once we walk away from it in a month or two, we can all say, we have a policy we believe in.
Sure.
We've listened to, we know all the concerns. We know we've got a very good product, but once we say we're putting money into it, then we have to have a policy that says what are we putting money into,
right?
And that's the hard part. And it may take us a couple 3 months. I don't know. I mean, it is. You made a very good point, Katie. It doesn't fit in any box.
Right.
It's unique, but it's unique to the point that we need to know what the parameters of that uniqueness is. Okay.
Do we need to create a different division for it?
Possibly.
An option?
Possibly. Yeah, possibly. I mean, I think we're all open to anything that will work, as long as we know that in the end it's workable.
Yeah, so it's what it's evolved to over 17 years, as I stated beforehand. And try to capture everything that's going on. It would like Katie was referring to how they go out to the elementary schools to teach these STEM lessons, which is an amazing experience both ways. But trying to capture that. I mean, it's again, it's something that stitches the program is growing into. So I other than describing it, I don't know where it would fit. Besides that, I do know that this year specifically with our 1629 students, for as much as possible, we're taking the students we're helping other school systems around and about Garrett County, not so much in Garrett County. So we're looking for days that they have off, for half days and so on and so forth, that school might be in session, that we're taking advantage of that time. So when we go to Parkersburg, it'll be a time when school's not in session here, but a session in Parkersburg. Again, in referring to myself, you give a massive cookie. And I'm sorry for that.
Hey, listen, what are you sorry for? We've got to start. That's more than we have.
What I'd like to suggest is let's send this back, Charlotte and Policy Committee, if we could get together again, taking some of this conversation, and then if you have specific things that you want to make sure we address, and we caught some of those
We'll
tonight.
find out when the policy committee is.
Yeah.
I'll try to make every effort to be there.
So we can make sure that we do that.
There's some things we haven't covered yet, so do we just want to let that lay for a while?
Yeah, I think that's. I think we've been able to read it, and then it's out there, and certainly the public can feel free to look at it.
We want public input.
Sure.
We want to get it right.
Yeah.
So I
I want to
think
do it one time.
Absolutely.
I'm old. I can't do it.
Well, I'm right behind you.
so. We will get. We actually don't have a date for September, and I think you're going to be away in October, but we'll get a date, and then we'll send that out to the board and everybody as well. So, and then.
But the good thing is it'll be out tonight or in the morning
Yes.
on the website
For public
for
and,
comments.
Yeah, it'll be out there as under review.
Chuck, thank you for your hard work.
Yeah.
All the 17 years, especially on this.
It's the greatest thing going. It just is. I mean, I said
Yeah, that's what we talked about. We said what we have to do here is we don't worry about it while Chuck's here, but we have to get a thing in place so that when Chuck's
Yeah, well,
Chuck's
once
out,
you're
people
gone,
have
somebody said, "Oh, I see why they did that. That made perfect sense."
So.
Well, thank you all for your
Thank
support
you.
and your willingness to make this work.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have the ethics policy. And that is Dr. Wilson. Is she around?
She is. She's right there.
There she is.
Okay.
I don't,
I know what you will decide. It's Wilderson.
what did I say?
You did. It said Wilderson. You said Wilderson. Sorry.
I might have said
A lot
Wilbur.
of people say Wilbur.
Thank you, Sam.
So this is the ethics policy. All right. Yeah, I'm ready.
The other folks know.
At the August 14th board meeting, the board approved the revisions for the BC Ethics Policy Procedure recommended by the State Ethics Commission. This evening, I am requesting that the board adopt the revisions that were submitted and approved by the State Ethics Commission on August 23rd, 2018. It is important to know no changes have been made to policy BC Ethics Policy Procedure since the August 14th Commission's meeting. They are recommending for
So these were
the board to
approved with no
adopt.
changes, and so we need a motion now to approve it.
This is not on. This is not
It's-
on the.
It's on board docs.
Well, it's not on her board doc. When did it go up?
It was there when we approved the agenda because I made sure it was up
Yeah,
there.
well,
I read
But I think what you stated, there were no changes recommended when you submitted it
That
to
is
the
correct.
commission.
Yeah, the state commission emailed me back and said the board now has to approve the revisions that were made. Even though you approved the revisions, since the state ethics commission approved the revisions, now you have to adopt
But
them.
no other changes.
But no changes, that's correct.
So motion to approve the revisions we approved on August 14, 2018.
Okay, motion. Second. Motion by Dr. Sorber, second by Mr. Woods. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the approving the ethics policy and procedure, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. It is approved. Thank you.
Thank you for your work on that, Dr. Wilson.
You really cleared out the room, Jane.
Yeah, you know how to take out the crowd. No one's interested in ethics anymore. It's all robotics. That's where it is. Well, let's bring this home a little bit. Student board member report.
All right. So, I went to the MABE student member of the board orientation. I don't remember what the date is. I'm sorry. We discussed a lot of important information, and specifically what I got out of it, we learned about the difference between the what questions that the board answers and the how questions that the superintendent answers. I thought that was helpful because I'd never really understood that before. And then how to answer the questions as a team and in support of our vision, the role of the board's legal role and policy discussion, And then we also discussed some hot topic issues across the county boards that they are facing in our state, such as like social media concerns, guns in schools, Alexa in classrooms. And then probably my favorite part was getting to meet and connect with other student members of the boards. It was really nice and they were all super helpful. And it was interesting to hear about the different board dynamics. Interesting.
How did you characterize our dynamic?
Undescribable.
What did she say?
Undescribable. Great answer.
Good.
Thank you for going.
Never boring.
We also had a GCASC meeting and we reviewed and approved the agenda for the year with the events that we had planned. Discussed this year's state charity for MASC, which is Believe in Tomorrow. And on September 21st, Mrs. Wazalowski has organized a literary initiative for elementary students, grades 1 to 2 in Garrett County, and GCAC is backing that and taking part in. Also, FLC is coming up, and it is being hosted by St. Mary's County.
Great. Good job. Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Kassour?
What did you say was September 21st for first and second graders? Is that all the first and second grade in the county? Do you know? The reading?
Wazalowski has more information. It's the literary initiative.
It's every school, I know that.
So are we taking them somewhere for it, or they'll come central office?
Actually, they're coming to the town of Oak.
Oh, okay.
There's different activities all throughout the town, and they'll rotate the activities.
Oh, so the towns have, I saw it in the newspaper, I think, where there's a reading and,
Right.
yeah, so they're bringing them too.
I remember Mrs. LaSanti, who used to teach with us, it was kind of her initiative with the town, and with the reading station, and then I put her in touch with Mrs. Slowowski, and then they started how we could get the kids involved, and it's going to be a town event, but we do have all the kids going.
I have it on my calendar.
And then, are there any board member updates?
I went to the foundation meeting at Wendell Teets Trust Foundation yesterday, and we're trying to we're going to get a hold of I think they're called Insight. It's Eric Nutter's company to try to build a website that will articulate truly what our foundation is about. It's the Garrett County Public Schools Foundation, actually, in honor of Wendell Teets. And we got 2 donations that was put into the trust this year, recently. One was from Rotary, because 4 of our employees worked the French fry booth, so they made a $250 donation, and there was a $300 donation from the hospital as well. So. The good thing that the foundation is doing is it's housing money for the after-school after prom programs. So we're that conduit for them. So I'm hopeful that we can get that out, because I think there are a lot of avenues that people could actually use the foundation as a way to not pay the government any more money than they have to. So we just need to get that word out, and hopefully through social media and through websites, that kind of thing, it will. So I thought it was very productive.
Yes, I attended the grand opening of the Garrett County STEM building. Mrs. Baker was there also. That was on Saturday. They have a beautiful facility, and they reconfigured the old continuing ed building, and then they built 4 labs onto that. So that new part is the labs. And if you've seen here I go to the newspaper again, you will see that they have some state-of-the-art equipment there, and it was all very, very impressive. And like they said, we did have 2 senators, and they said that probably one of the only times that we've had 2 senators show up for something that's happening in the county. So that was good, and they helped get the monies to be able to to work on the facility and also get the equipment for the building. I think that, I believe that this facility will benefit our students and the community in the future. So I can see our kids going out to the labs possibly, and then once they make their decision where they'd like to go to school, hopefully parents will go out and see the building also when they're thinking about where the kids would like to go, because it is very impressive, and they do have things that they don't have other places now. So
Yes, we heard that.
yes, we did. Very interesting. It was a very nice day, and it was very nice.
Thank you.
Here's an update. Southern's going to play their football game Thursday night at 6.
It's Thursday night at
Friday
6.
night.
And Northern has been moved as well.
Northern going to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Due to the weather.
Did anyone go to the county meeting last evening that was at the college? I understood it was supposed to be on facilities. Did you know anything about it? It's part of that planning meeting. Remember we argued last time because we were left out of the plan. Well, they're having these meetings, but I was not able to make it to that one. I thought maybe we should get their list of when they're meeting, so we could have somebody there.
Okay. The next item is the board MABE committee assignments. So you can see they have several committees. If you want to be on any of those committees, we can sign you up. But we have to have people on the legislative and budget committees. Charlotte, are you currently on LSA? Is that the one you're?
Well, I'm on it.
But you haven't.
Dr. Wilderson has been going, which I think it actually is the kind of things that Human Resources has to deal with. So even if I was going, I think I would also think that James should be there to hear the information. And possibly if there are things when you're there, maybe we could get a report back after those meetings. Yeah, that would be good, because but if Jane's willing to stay on that, is that something they...
We need that one. That one in budget for sure, and then there's the others that are listed there. But
the budget is one time, right?
yeah, it's usually one time.
One or two.
I might do that, but
I think you should.
Or LSA.
yeah, we need to pray together before I do it. So.
I need to pray before I commit.
No, I might be able to do it. If you give me more information, I might be able to do it.
The budget one? I'll give you more information. Show up to the meeting. That's it.
I need information on their schedule, and if it's something I can.
Yeah,
if there's something I can
typically
do,
it's before the conference. Right. Usually
Yeah,
August, September.
the folks that are going will come back with a budget that was passed. And then, so it wouldn't be now, right? The meeting.
They approved the budget. They approve a budget for submitting to the committee.
So it's
And
next
it's just a MABE budget. It's
correct.
Not,
it's just MABE's
it's
budget.
not any other.
It's the
It's
MABE
just in
budget
MABE's budget.
Yeah. So they approve what's submitted, and then the whole
So they do that again
conference
next year.
approves it. So it'll just be one mini. I don't know why they don't. All these meetings, I don't know why they don't make them teleconference though.
Yes, teleconference. Did you
Just
get
say
that
you're
in
going
the
to call
budget?
in.
So
we're going with,
I guess maybe.
I think
Dr. Sorber, you would agree?
he's going to pray about it, but we'll put him down. And then you can put me as the alternative. I'll be the alternate.
They don't need an alternate for
Oh, really? I've been the alternate for years.
For budget?
I was alternate for Tom Clark. But now I'm not the alternate. So that's all right.
Could you be the alternate for legislative?
I could be the alternate for legislative, but
Can we do that? And then Ms. Siebold, you'll continue, and then Dr. Wilderson as well.
Tom, you want to anything? Come on, man. Monica?
I'm good in the county.
Okay. We got some other
Thank
things
you.
there. Federal relations. Made awards. So Charlotte can win for being the longest serving.
No, I'll pass. No, thank you. It's dedicated.
All right. That's good. All right. We are.
You have to put that in.
We're done with the public session part, and we will return to executive after a break. So let's take 10 minutes, please. 8:30, please. Be back.
Dr. Ford didn't have it.